So, I hear that Hunter Biden was found guilty on all three charges related to gun possession while he was using crack cocaine. And in the words of that great American philosopher, Gino Bisconti, all right. Hi, hello, how are you out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of Chattin on the Porch, otherwise known as the post-Hunter Biden verdict discussion panel, which consists of moi, and everybody else out there in internet land. We're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. So wherever you are out there in social media, do me a favor, send out a Gettr, a Gab, a tweet, a Truth Social, a Facebook post, wherever you are out there, and tell everybody to get in here because, boy, are we headed for one very interesting discussion tonight. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known in social media as the wise guy in the wide brim. Occasionally, I'm referred to as the common man with common sense. Or maybe it's better to say I was the inspiration for Aaron Copland's Anthem of the Common Man. He just didn't know it because I wasn't born yet. Anyway, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, we are on YouTube. So send it out, tell your friends, get in here because there is going to be quite a bit of wide-ranging discussion, emotion, whatever you want to think about this whole Hunter Biden thing. And believe me, there's a lot to chew on. There's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to get angles on. I want to hear everybody's opinion. I want to know what everybody's thinking. So like I said, tell your friends, let's get a big old crowd of people in here because this is going to be a load of fun tonight. So we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. And again, send out your messages to your friends, tell them to get in here because we are going to lay down the final opinion on all this. And you know what happens when we talk? Everybody listens. We are the E.F. Hutton of social media. Oh, goodness. So glad to have you guys here tonight. All right, let's see who's in the house. Over on Rumble, we got Zippy. He's here. WWG1 is here. All right, who is here on YouTube? Yes, it is Taco Tuesday, and we got nothing to talk about. Absolutely nothing to talk about. It's atrocious, my friends. Absolutely atrocious. What are we going to... I don't know. There's nothing to talk about at all. Absolutely nothing. It's awful. I don't know what we're going to do for the next hour and a half. Absolutely. Yes, YouTube sucks. You know, spoken like a true Japanese American. Well, that'll get me clipped. Anyway, hello, M169. How you doing, darling? Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. So much to talk about. Well, WWG1 says it's Tequila Tuesday. Well, you know, after this verdict and everything that goes with it, we all might need something to drink. Me, since I'm driving this ship of social media state, I'm sticking to water. I got to be a good boy for right now. Got to be a good boy. Okay. Let's get into it. First things first. I have always said that as your host, if I don't get something right, if I make a prediction and it turns out to be I was wrong, I will come here and tell you, my audience, I screwed one up. I had the wrong take on it. It did not go down the way I thought it would. And I am here to tell you, and to everyone out in social media, I was wrong. I said yesterday I could have sworn we were going to get a hung jury. And I did that on the basis of what the jury was made up of. I want to take you to a post from Wendell Husebo, the excellent writer from Breitbart. And this was early this morning before the verdict came down. Who are Hunter Biden's 12 jurors? Many of them have family with substance abuse issues and get news from far-left cable networks. One juror is a former Secret Service agent. Another's husband is a member of the Delaware State Legislature. Only 21 Republicans in the legislature, 41 of them are Democrats. Juror number 1, woman watches CBS News. Another one works for the Secret Service. Alternate juror, heard about the case, wasn't following it. Woman who thinks people that smoke marijuana should be allowed to own guns, which we'll get into that discussion here momentarily. A man who pleaded guilty to a DUI, a middle-aged black man who holds a concealed carry permit in Florida and Delaware, a man who said his father owns a few firearms, a man whose father was killed in a gun crime in 2004, a middle-aged non-white woman who owns a firearm, a man who did not know anything about the case until 1 week ago. Oh my God, this guy, I want to know how he makes it through life. Seriously. A woman whose childhood best friend died of a heroin overdose, and a man who had an older brother addicted to heroin and PCP. So when you factor in the jury, and you factor in the location, and you factor in the fact that this is in the Biden family's backyard, I could have sworn he would have gotten a hung jury or a not guilty verdict. But lo and behold, at about, call it, roughly, let's say 11 o'clock this morning, 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there, the verdict came down. From the New York Times. Hunter Biden found guilty on charges related to gun purchase in 2018. The president's son was convicted of 3 felonies during a trial that made his struggles with drug addiction painfully public. Okay. Article by Glenn Thrush, Eileen Sullivan, and Zach Montague. A jury in Wilmington, Delaware on Tuesday found Hunter Biden, the president's son, guilty on 3 felony counts for lying on a federal firearms application, a shattering blow for the Biden family in the middle of an unforgiving presidential election campaign. The verdict brought an end to an extraordinary 7-day trial that was made painfully public. Mr. Biden's crack addiction, reckless behavior, and ruinous spending, narrated by 3 former romantic partners, including the widow of his brother, Beau Biden, and by the defendant himself in the pages of his memoir. The charges that Mr. Biden was convicted of stem from the purchase of a Colt pistol in 2018 and also included illegal possession of a weapon after falsely claiming to be drug-free on the standard background check required in all firearm transactions. Mr. Biden, 54 years old, faces up to 25 years in prison, although federal sentencing guidelines call for a fraction of that penalty. First-time offenders who did not use their weapons to commit violent crimes typically see little jail time, and prosecutors suggested that they would not seek a sentence more severe than for any other person convicted in such a case. As the verdict was read aloud, Biden stood with his arms crossed, grimly surveying the jury. When it was all over, he hugged and kissed his wife, Melissa Cohen Biden. Quote, "I am more grateful today for the love and support I experienced this last week from Melissa, my family, my friends, and my community than I am disappointed by the outcome," he said in a statement shortly thereafter. Mr. Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell, suggested that he might appeal, vowing to, quote, vigorously pursue all the legal challenges available to Hunter. We'll get into that here in a second, too. It is unclear what, if any, political implications the verdict will have. Former President Donald J. Trump, facing 2 federal indictments, pounced on the verdict, and other Republicans have expressed skepticism about the trial, and Representative Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican allied of Mr. Trump, said on social media that the conviction was, quote, kind of dumb, but the verdict was nothing short of a personal catastrophe for Mr. Biden. Okay, let's get into this. 3 counts, guilty on all of them, has never been prior convicted of a crime, didn't use the gun in the commission of a crime. If I remember correctly, I did a video about this, that was maybe about a year ago. And the average standard sentence that Hunter Biden ought to get under federal sentencing guidelines is about 18 to 27 months, if my memory serves me right. So we're talking basically a year and a half, maybe 2 years in jail is what he ought to get if you go by standard federal sentencing guidelines. Okay. Hunter's going to appeal this, as you might expect. And there's all kinds of angles from which to discuss this. Now, I'm not going to lie. We're going to be on this subject for quite a while tonight. Okay, Zippy, I want to hear this. I want to hear this from you. Why do you say that Hunter was wronged by the courts? And I'm not saying you're wrong. I've got a feeling I know where you're going, but I want to hear you flesh this out. And seriously, everybody, Drop your opinions in chat. Doesn't matter if you're on Rumble, doesn't matter if you're on YouTube. Put down what you think. We'll talk about it. I've got a whole string of tabs and articles up here, but I want to get you guys' take on this because I think there is one aspect about all this that I don't think anybody is stopping really to consider. And frankly, it poses more danger for Joe Biden now than it ever has before. We've kind of touched on this briefly up to now, but just like in Donald Trump's trial, stuff just got real. Okay? So I want to hear it from you guys. This is the first case I can think of where they actually applied existing gun laws. Good point. All right. Why is this an unconstitutional law, if I may ask? And again, I'm not trying to berate you. I'm not trying to just put it out there, dude. Why is it an unconstitutional law? The anti-gun law crowd can't say that gun laws aren't enforced. Well, good point. Good point. All right. So the verdict comes down, and President Biden issues a statement, which he probably already had ready to go just in case. That would be my guess. And the statement goes something like this. As I said last week, I am the president, but I am also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today. Okay. So many families who have had loved ones battle addiction understand the feeling of pride seeing someone you love come out of the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. Okay. I can give him that. I could give him that part. As I also said last week, I accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. Jill and I will always be there for Hunter and for the rest of our family, that with our love and support. Oh, really? All your family? Does that include your granddaughter that you never talked to, Joe? Or you never even recognized? You never even talked to her, seen her? Anything like that? You know, just curious what you mean by, love and support of all of our family. Nothing will ever change that. Okay. So we've heard from the president. Well, now, actually, hold on now. Hold on. Well, now this is a good point too. But there's one aspect about this law that is just, and we'll get to it because I got a feeling everybody's thinking the same thing here. There's a couple of folks who have pointed out something about this, about what he's been charged with. Zippy's Second Amendment is a fundamental civil right. You cannot usurp the Bill of Rights. Okay, fair enough. We'll get to that. It's possible that maybe the president didn't say exactly what he meant. There are some people who have kind of read between the lines on exactly what Joe Biden was trying to say. The Babylon Bee has a better interpretation of the statement. Still proud of his son for getting away with everything else he did. Just saying. Okay, a little more serious now. There was one darkly humorous and ironic moment that happened today after the verdict came down. The president already had a series of events that he was scheduled to be at. And one of them was this, and the imagery, and Benny Johnson's absolutely right. Benny Johnson pointed this out, and I can't disagree with him. Joe Biden is about to go on stage at Gun Sense University and give a speech as it relates to gun laws in America, just after his son's been convicted on 3 counts related to gun-related charges. The irony, the dark irony in that is not lost on anybody. I mean, just that whole image just kind of boggles the mind. There is one more image I'll show you, and then we'll get into some more discussions. This picture, and I'm not even going to try and rag on either one of them for this. Okay, I'm not. Not for this part of it. There's a picture of where Hunter met his dad at Wilmington Air Force Base outside Dover, Delaware. And look, y'all know where I stand where the Biden family's concerned, be it Joe or Hunter or any of them. Okay. But I'm not even going to, and I'm serious about this. I'm not even going to try and rag on them for this one. I'm really not. Just let it speak for itself. Now, that might be about the only kind thing I have to say tonight with regard to this whole situation. So let's just start diving into the analysis. Let's start with the question of where does it go from here? Well, although I have not heard a specific date yet, sentencing's probably going to come down somewhere in the next 2 or 3 months. Odds are Hunter will appeal. You can make an argument he probably should. I wouldn't disagree with him if he did appeal it. Now, I can just hear people out there right now. Oh, you mean for as much as you bashed the Bidens, you don't have a problem with him trying to delay this sentencing? Not necessarily. Because there is a valid fundamental point that sometimes I overlook and sometimes a lot of people on the right overlook. And that is, as much as I may dislike Hunter Biden or his dad or anybody else for that matter, they are still American citizens and they are accorded certain constitutional rights. Now, what else is going to happen here? Well, here's something from Catherine Herridge. Backbone of special counsel gun case was Hunter Biden's laptop user data. Pending California tax case poses significant potential legal jeopardy for Hunter and the immediate family, which calls him a lobbyist. References to Ukraine, China strongly suggest investigators are exploring potential FARA violations. Now, what she's pointing to, and I don't know if I can enlarge this. I don't think I can. No, I don't think it's going to let me. But in the grand jury indictment that came down out of the District of California, now let me see if I can do this. Hang on. That might make it a little bit better. In the introductory allegations, they refer to Hunter Biden as a Georgetown and Yale educated lawyer, lobbyist, consultant. Whoa, lobbyist. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What she's getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is Catherine Herridge is of the belief that the investigators out on this California case against Hunter are going to try and get him on Foreign Agent Relations Act violations, FARA. With all due respect to Catherine Herridge, I just don't agree with that. I don't think it's going to happen. Statute of limitations may have already run out on the whole thing. So I don't see how you're going to get him for that. And that'll bring up something else we get to a little bit later. One last thing. This is from Wendell Hughesbow, the fabulous writer over at Breitbart. Hunter will ask special counsel David Weiss for a tax plea deal after today's gun conviction, legal experts say. Weiss charged Hunter for not paying his taxes on time upon receiving millions from China, Ukraine, and Russia because he's a Biden. Trial is set for September. Weiss previously tried to give Hunter a sweetheart gun deal, but it blew up because it wasn't constitutional per the judge. Okay. So that is more or less what happened today, and that is more or less what's coming up next, probably in the next 3 or 4 months, pending appeals from Hunter Biden. And I guess this is where we start getting into the realms of opinion and speculation. Like I said, I messed it up on the verdict. I really thought he was going to get I really thought the jury would either find him not guilty or he'd get a hung jury. I'm serious. I really did. I really didn't think this jury would go through with it. But they have. And now that sort of begs the question. There's a bunch of different angles to look at this decision from, and I want to get to some of the stuff that Robert, Zippy, and others are already talking about. And before I do, got to say hello to Miss Gypsy. Hello, my dear. Judge Mary Ellen Norica estimated that sentencing would occur within 120 days after conviction, when she will determine whether Hunter Biden will face jail time. So we're looking at the fall. Okay, right in the middle of the presidential election. Okay. Yeah, Hunter definitely got high. Yeah. And I'll bet he regrets every day of it after this, among other reasons. Okay. Let's get into some of what Robert and Zippy are talking about here. I want to pull up one thing real fast. Hang on a minute. There we go. Because this is kind of going to form the basis of the next part of our discussion. And the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. I got some questions for y'all, and I'm just kind of spitballing here, the next part of this. I'm probably about as pro Second Amendment as anybody else. Okay? I do not like the idea of the government telling you how many guns you can own, how much ammunition you can have for the guns, what kind of guns you can own, etc., and so on. If you want to own a Thompson submachine gun, by God, that shall be your own business. On the other hand, do I want to necessarily have guns in the hands of people who are addicted to drugs? No, in principle, I don't think anybody does. But that sort of begs another question. Drugs. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about coffee? Coffee could be a drug. Caffeine could be a drug. Does the government get the right to determine that if you've had too much caffeine that day, you should no longer have, when you're filling out a request to purchase a federal firearm, can they background check you on how much caffeine you've ingested that day? And what about the wording of these questionnaires? I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I have family members of mine that recently purchased firearms. Yeah, this is a good point too. I mean, am I trying to excuse Hunter Biden's drug use? No, of course not. Would I have wanted to see him use a firearm if he was just gacked out of his mind? Of course not. On the other hand, what does the ownership of a firearm have to do with a drug? Now, maybe I'm being a little simplistic or a little, Pollyanna about this, but I think that's a perfectly legitimate question. Let's take it one step further. And matter of fact, let me find it here real fast. Hang on one second. There's a couple of guys who reacted to this trial, and they both made really good sense. One of them is Thomas Massey, one of my favorites that I look to in matters like this. Hunter Biden might deserve to be in jail for something, but purchasing a gun is not it. There are millions of marijuana users who own guns in this country, and none of them should be in jail for purchasing or possessing a firearm under current law. That's a completely fair point. I mean, does anybody, and if you don't know, that's fine, but I'm very curious to know, how was that worded on the questionnaire that Hunter Biden filled out? I know I'm getting a little bit in the weeds with this, but I think it's a perfectly legitimate point to bring up about all this. Should Hunter Biden's conviction stand? I'm starting to wonder. I mean, if the question is you lied on a federal questionnaire about whether or not you used drugs for the purchase of a gun, I'm not so sure I want that being a crime. Should you lie? Of course you should not lie. But in one sense, I think Thomas Massey brings up a perfectly valid point. Now, and I agree with this. I agree. I can't disagree with this. They're going to use Hunter Biden's conviction as the basis to say, hey, look at these gun laws. Do you want this crack user being in possession of a firearm? I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with this at all. I don't even know that the question, frankly, ought to be on the application. Like I said, some people are getting all hung up about the fact that he was addicted to crack cocaine, and I'm not saying that's a good situation at all. But on the other hand, let's say it had been marijuana. If he had said, I'm not using marijuana, I'm not whatever, should that have been the basis to find him guilty? Like my first example, let's say it was caffeine. Does the federal government get the right to say, well, if you've ingested too much caffeine on a particular day or over a particular number of days, you're not allowed to buy a firearm? Exactly. Shall not be infringed. Ownership should never be a crime. Yeah, I can't disagree with this. I cannot disagree with it at all. I mean, to me, it goes back, and you guys feel free to disagree with me on this if you want to, but to me, it goes back to the fundamental question. Okay, there's a difference between owning a firearm and what you do with it. Okay? Look, all right, let's take it one step further. Let's say that I go into a gun shop. I've had a 6-pack of beers. I am really feeling full of myself, and I purchase a firearm, and this question is worded in such a way that depending on how I answer it, I could be guilty of a federal crime by the fact that I'm drunk as a skunk, and I go buy this firearm. Is that the basis under which they should convict me? I was drunk when I bought the gun? No. How about we convict you of a crime because of what you did, irregardless of whether you own a gun or whether you use the gun in the commission of the crime? How about we just, find you guilty of committing a crime? See, this is why I say the more I'm starting to think about it, and in spite of the fact that I think Hunter Biden is a bottom-feeding scumsucker just like his dad, I'm not so sure I want this conviction to stand. I mean, lay aside the political aspect of it. Let's just talk about pure constitutional reason here. Do I want to see something like, and again, to go to Gypsy's point, do I want to see this conviction stand and let these gun grabbers use this as one more example of why we need stricter gun laws in America? Or why certain people should and should not have a firearm? I'm not so sure. Like I said, I'm about half a notion to be on the side of, all right, Hunter, I think you ought to have this conviction overturned. Another person who usually makes pretty good sense, a Midwesterner, the quartering. Uncomfortable truth. The Second Amendment does not say, quote, unless they are doing drugs, and it also doesn't say if they pass a background check or as long as they're not a felon. I don't like Hunter Biden, but I don't support federal background checks either. Good point. Completely good point. Totally valid. Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic, or any other? So this is how it reads on the gun purchase form. Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to or any depressant? Well, that's so damn broad. Are you an unlawful user of? Okay, that part I can understand. Or addicted to. Well, hell, I'm addicted to Diet Coke, which is full of caffeine. Does that mean I can't own a firearm? Does that mean you ought to go out? Somebody ought to go out and take me into court? I mean, if that's how it's worded, then absolutely this conviction ought to be overturned because that is so broad. And I'll admit, it's been forever since I've gone into a gun shop, looked at guns, or bought a gun. I'm not going to lie about that. So if this is how that's worded on the form, then heck no, that's crazy. This conviction ought to be overturned. And that's a good point. That's a great point. It's only about controlled substances. All right. Zippy over on Rumble with a Rumble rant. Thank you very much, Zippy. I mean, really, sugar dose is far more harmful than hard drugs. Fair point. Fair point indeed. Are you an unlawful user? I'm sorry. I'm really hung up on how this is worded. Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? Well, I know I'm going with my constitutional gut on this one. This conviction ought to be overturned. Because that's so broad you could drive a Mack truck through it. Everybody could be convicted of something. If the feds are going to allow that kind of definition to stick up. Plus, it's like you guys said, and using common sense. It doesn't say, here's the exception. No, it says shall not be infringed. Okay. That's the constitutional aspect of it. Let's talk about the legal. And again, throw your comments in chat. I'm dying to hear what you guys have got to say because there is an aspect of this verdict, and it's been building for a while. I said that I think Hunter Biden is a bottom-feeding scum sucker just like his dad. And I don't back off of that. He is. I mean, I'm serious. When I say bottom feeding scum sucker, lay aside the drug addiction. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the slimy, smarmy way he does business, either on his own behalf or on behalf of the Biden family. Okay, good question. Well, see, this is why I'm having such a hard time with the way that question's worded. What is a controlled substance? I mean, are you an unlawful user? Okay, I can understand that, maybe. But the whole word addicted to, well, how do you define addiction? And I know I'm being just like almost pedantic about this, but how do you define addiction? If a person drinks a glass of wine every day, are they addicted to wine? Does that make them an alcoholic? I mean, what? And the government gets to define addiction. Yeah. Again, maybe I'm being just overly way too analytical about this, but I'm serious. If that's how that's from the 4473 form, if that's how the question's worded, man, absolutely Hunter Biden ought to appeal this, and I hope he gets it overturned. Okay, back to where I was going. And like I say, put your comments in chat. We'll talk about all of it as much as we possibly can. There is one aspect about this verdict, and a lot of people are rightfully pointing it out, and it's this. There are so many things for which Hunter Biden ought to be charged with. Why are we going after him on the gun stuff? Why are we going after him on guns? Well, part of that is David Weiss. Okay. From the perspective of a lot of people who've looked at the contents of the laptop, which, by the way, we're going to get back to the laptop here in just a minute, because that sort of goes to why I think Joe Biden now really, really has a big problem. Most people who've analyzed the contents of the laptop, analyzed Hunter's business moves, analyzed all the money that he was getting coming in and how it was flowing through all these different LLC accounts and from this account to that account, and all of a sudden money's winding up in the account of Uncle James or in a joint account that Hunter had with Joe and stuff like that. People have been estimating, wait a second, was this guy even registered as a foreign agent? Was he even registered as a foreign lobbyist? That's one thing he could have been charged with, should have been charged with. What about all this money coming in from Ukraine and China and all these countries around the world? How is this making any sense? There's a lot of things he could have been charged with, a lot of things he should have been charged with, but we're only charging him with a gun, with this whole gun issue. I'm going to show you some tweets from people far smarter than I am. And the more they talk about, the more I think these guys are right. Give me just a second. I'll get these pulled up real quick. From the inestimable Jack Posobiec. They went after Hunter on his gun stuff to make you overlook all of his Ukraine stuff. And that's a valid point. Remember, one of the finest rules of distraction. Look over here, but don't pay attention to what's going on over here. Keep looking at this so you don't pay attention to this. From Joel Pollack, fabulous writer from Breitbart. Hunter Biden is guilty, but does that prove Garland's DOJ is fair? A judge happened to question the DOJ's bizarre sweetheart plea deal that looked like it was shaped to protect Joe Biden. Hunter will eventually be pardoned, and the big guy will be protected from any real scrutiny. Let's go to the next one from Mike Davis of the Article 3 Foundation. There is overwhelming evidence of Hunter's guilt on the gun charges. To the Delaware jury's credit, it surprisingly put the facts and the law above politics. But there is also overwhelming evidence of Joe Biden's foreign corruption, which greatly compromises our national security. Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, handpicked by both Democrat senators, only brought these gun charges after he got caught by an honest judge attempting to jam through a sweetheart deal with a backdoor pardon to protect the Biden family. If Hunter Biden were a black man, he'd be sent to prison. Joe Biden claims he won't pardon his son. Don't hold your breath. He'll do it the day after the election. Now, that gets to something else. For my part, I do not believe Joe Biden one bit. He's going to pardon Hunter. The only question is when he's going to do it. I'll just make a prediction. This is just my opinion. If Joe Biden loses the election, he will pardon Hunter Biden on January 19th, 2025, the day before Joe leaves office, or perhaps the morning of. Because remember, Joe Biden will still have power up until noon on the 20th. Okay? Probably he'll do it the night before. If Joe Biden were to win re-election, oh, please God, no. If Joe Biden wins re-election, I'm saying January 21st, the day after the inauguration. It'll make everybody mad, and it won't matter one little bit. Joe's off the hook, and so's Hunter. And when I say Joe's off the hook, these guys are right. Remember how the Biden family sets up the business arrangements. Hunter is the face of the organization. He's the front man, and he's the bag man. Everybody knows to get to the product, okay? Let's do it like this. To get to the product that the Biden family is selling, you've got to go through Hunter. Hunter is the face. Hunter is the front man, and after the buyers have bought the product, he's the bag man. What's the product? Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the product. Remember what Devin Archer, Hunter's former business partner, said. Everybody understood. Business clients understood. You go through Hunter to get to Joe. Why is Hunter Biden making phone calls at the dinner table at fancy restaurants, putting it on loudspeaker where Joe is talking to these guys? Why is Joe Biden dropping by at a dinner that Hunter is giving for his business clients, so Joe can slap some backs and shake some hands? Because Joe is the product. Joe's knowledge of how the federal government works, Joe's connections to who you got to talk to. Joe is the grease of the gears. That's what Hunter is selling. That's what James, Joe's brother, is selling. And for the ability to make things go smoothly in a business transaction, these companies are giving money to Hunter and to James, but particularly to Hunter. Hunter is funneling it through all these companies set up to sort of give insulation between all the members of the Biden family and the cash. And on the back end of it, money is hitting people's accounts. That's the Biden business arrangement. Okay, yeah. Not gears, but the grease of the gears. Joe is the grease of the gears. He's the grease for the skid. Joe is the guy that makes everything for these business people flow smoothly. Joe knows how to get around all the pitfalls. Joe knows who to call inside the federal government. That's what Hunter is selling. Access and business grease, for lack of a better term. A couple of more tweets. This from Stephen Miller, longtime advisor to Donald Trump. DOJ is running election interference for Joe Biden. That's why DOJ did not charge Hunter with being an unregistered foreign agent under FARA or any crime connected with foreign corruption. Why? Because all the evidence would lead back to Joe. DOJ is Joe's election protection racket. One more from Stephen Miller. Do you now see how the op works? Charge Hunter with a minor gun violation and not his conduct as an unregistered foreign agent or illicit foreign business dealings in order to protect the big guy before the election. DOJ is Biden's election protection racket. We're all, and myself included, I'm watching this gun charge. I'm trying to figure out, is he going to be found guilty? Is he not going to be found guilty? Now I'm paying attention to the gun charge, and these guys are right. We're kind of ignoring, or I'm now not realizing, hey, Brian, you need to be looking over here because this is the bigger issue. And I think guys like Posobiec, Davis, and Stephen Miller are absolutely right. Now, there is one more aspect to this, and I almost hate to bring this up. I really do. But it's a completely fair question given the Biden family. Let me ask you guys something, and I want your take on this. I'm serious. I want your take on this. Do you guys think that Joe Biden is ruthless enough to throw his son under the bus legally? Let me ask that question again. Do you guys out there, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you are, do you think that Joe Biden is ruthless enough? Is he ruthless enough to throw Hunter under the bus and let him swing from the gallows, so to speak? Because remember what Joe said, I'm not going to pardon him. I will not pardon him. Let me show you a tweet. And this is part of why I'm asking this question. A Apparently, Joe Biden has sacrificed his son to an unwarranted felony conviction to score political points in establishing the fairness of the criminal justice system, so GOP voters should be convinced of the legitimacy of the cases against Trump. All right, and to answer the question, Gypsy's saying he'd absolutely be that ruthless. Leanne is saying he'd absolutely be that ruthless. I can't disagree with that. I mean, Shipwreck. This guy's Shipwreck, and I'm not sure he's a social media influencer or. 22 years as a federal prosecutor, defense attorney for 55 plus years, J6. Okay, all right. So if anybody ought to know, this guy's got some right to make an opinion on it, most certainly. Yeah, I think I agree with y'all. I think he is that ruthless. I really do. To protect himself, he'll let Hunter swing for a gun charge so long as Hunter keeps his mouth shut and Hunter realizes that Daddy will let him off on the back end. Because I mean, the point is completely fair. Because now what are all the Trump folks, Trump supporters saying? Oh well, I don't really know if I can criticize what's going on up in New York. Oh, you can still criticize it. See, this is where I think if the Biden strategy is to let Hunter get thrown under the bus because of these charges, so we'll get everybody to shut up about what's going on up in New York State, I don't think this works. And the reason that I say it, because I can just see what Joe's going to do. See, the system of justice is completely fair. Lady Justice is blind in America. No one's above the law. Even my son was found guilty in a court of law by a jury of his peers, just like Donald Trump. Therefore, you Trump people, don't you be criticizing what happened up in New York. Look at what they did to my boy. Yeah, and this is this is exactly why the criticism of what happened in New York is still legitimate. There's two different cases, two different set of circumstances, a whole myriad of reasons. See, this is what pisses me off about what Joe Biden is doing. There's a lot of things that piss me off, but this is the one in particular. I mean, when Trump's verdict came down, Joe Biden's out there wagging his crooked old dirty finger and saying, you can't criticize the system of justice in America. You're trying to undermine the law. You're trying to say that the jury system is wrong. No, we're not saying any of those things. We absolutely uphold the jury system in America. We believe in the judicial system of the United States of America. We believe in equal justice under the law. It is not inappropriate to criticize the circumstances behind a conviction if you disagree with them. And when it comes to Trump's case up in New York, that is what everybody's doing. If everybody thought that Donald Trump was getting a fair trial in front of an impartial judge with the ability to put on a robust and vigorous defense, and he was still found guilty based on the circumstances, you got it. Okay, I could see where someone would be like, yeah, you can't criticize this. I'd understand that. There's no way in hell that they'll try it. They will absolutely try it. They're going to try and make this whole conviction of Hunter Biden whitewash what happened up in New York. Fair point. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I saw that. Dear Lord. He looked awful. For any number of, and I haven't even got any clips of it pulled up. I should. I could probably find them real fast. If we get down to it toward the end of the show. But God, he looked awful. But if nothing else, if we don't get to it tonight, yeah, we're talking about this tomorrow night because, oh, Lord Almighty, he looked awful. Well, we don't have any rhythm. Look, Joe Biden is guilty of a lot of things, but he ain't guilty of proving the fact that white people ain't got no rhythm. I'll really admit we ain't got no rhythm, okay? White people got no rhythm. I ain't gonna try and hop, Okay. Some people have rhythm, okay? Let's just do it like that. I love you. I love you. I'm just kidding with you. But yeah, I mean, this is how ruthless and dirty either Biden or Biden's people. I'll give Gypsy the point on this one. Either Biden himself or his advisors and his campaign people. Okay. They are just that ruthless. They'll let Biden go right. I mean, Hunter's going to feel the tire tracks on his back where he's under the bus just to say Joe. Oh, God, now I've got a controversy going. Oh, no. Well, I just stepped in it. Oh, well, what else is new? Okay, white men ain't got no rhythm. All right, fine. Would you be happy if I said this white guy ain't got no rhythm? I mean, just saying, would it make some of y'all happy? There, I said, I have no rhythm. There you go. Yeah, Joe's just that ruthless. Or Joe's advisors, one of the two. So yeah, I think this guy Shipwrecked Crew, he's absolutely right. Now, I want to get to something else. And I know. Okay. There is understandably a lot of frustration on the right side of the political spectrum with this verdict. And I can just hear you lefties out there who watch this live stream, and y'all know you do. You just don't want to admit it. Okay. I can hear you lefties out there right now. Well, I don't see why you MAGA people are so upset. You got your pound of flesh. Hunter's going to go to jail. He's going to do time. He's going to be in an orange jumpsuit. Joe's not going to have, his only son around him, yada, yada, yada. Why are you guys so upset? Okay, first of all, you lefty, little Lord Huntleroy is never going to see a day's worth of jail time. Okay? He's going to appeal this thing out. And frankly, I think he should. He's going to appeal this thing out. His dad's going to pardon him. This garbage about, I'm going to respect the rule of law. I'm not going to pardon Hunter Biden. No, sir, I will not do it. Horse crap. Joe's going to pardon him the first chance he gets. Look, I might have been born in the dark, but it daggone sure was not last night. He's going to pardon Hunter. Like I said, little Lord Huntleroy ain't going to see a day's worth of jail time. You can just take that to the bank. All right? And we folks on the right have every reason to be upset about this. First of all, the legitimate question of what about all the other crimes that Hunter Biden should be charged with and he's never going to be? What about the fact that because he's not going to be charged all these crimes, that the big guy is not going to be brought up in all this when he should be? Yeah, we folks on the right have what about the fact that, that Joe Biden and his people in the Democrat Party are trying to gaslight Americans, particularly people on the political right, by saying, see, that Trump verdict up in New York, it's perfectly valid. Look what happened to Hunter. He got convicted too. We've got all kinds of reasons to be upset. Legitimately so. So in the court of law, I don't think this in the long run is going to go anywhere. That said, however, Joe Biden now has an enormous, and I mean enormous, problem politically. I mean, it is huge. Like I said, we sort of touched on this some over the past few live streams, and I sort of hit on this. But today, just like when Trump got convicted up in New York, stuff got real. Now, his problem is based on something we've talked about before, and And we need to mention again, remember what it was that the prosecution brought into this trial and what they did with it. I take you back in time to Breitbart. And this needs to be read because the implications of this are quite far-reaching. FBI witness confirms on stand in Hunter Biden's trial the laptop is real. Erica Jensen, an FBI agent, confirmed the authenticity of Hunter Biden's infamous laptop during the second day of his gun trial on Tuesday. All right, now I'm going to show you another headline, and this one is just as equally important. Again, from Breitbart. FBI witness confirms in court no tampering occurred with Hunter Biden's laptop. The testimony debunks longstanding claims by Hunter's associates that the laptop data was subject to hacking and to manipulation. No tampering occurred with Hunter Biden's laptop, said witness Erica Jensen, FBI agent. She told Hunter Biden's gun trial on Wednesday. Now, folks, I know I have maybe belabored this particular point for the past few live streams, but it's got to be said again. And I think we really need to dive deep into this. For the first time since this laptop its existence was revealed, the federal government of the United States, and more particularly its law enforcement divisions, number one, acknowledged the existence of that laptop. They admitted it's real. Okay? And number two, they verified its contents. You have an FBI agent with 20 years of service on the stand, her hand before God, swearing an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before the Almighty, that the contents of that laptop were not altered in any way, shape, or form. Now, why am I belaboring this point? Well, I think you guys know where I'm going with this, but I'm just going to hammer this home for anybody who listens to this live stream. Folks, think about what this means. The federal government acknowledged the existence of the laptop, verified that its contents were true and unaltered, and number three, on the basis of the first two, used it as the evidence to get a conviction on Hunter Biden. Okay. Fair point, but I'm getting to something here in just a minute. You're absolutely right. In one sense, they're safe to do it this way. Yeah, that's true. But hang on a second, because I'm getting to something here, and it's very important. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people are really stopping to consider. The federal government acknowledged its existence. The federal government verified that the contents are true and unaltered. The federal government used the contents of the laptop as evidence to obtain a conviction against Hunter Biden. Now, if all that laptop contained were pictures of Hunter Biden smoking crack, text messages back and forth to drug dealers, salacious pictures of him with women in very compromising positions, and that's putting it very diplomatically. If all that laptop had on it was that, and it was used against Hunter, its political power would stop at the end of this trial. But remember what else was on that laptop. Like a lot of people, that laptop was Hunter's brains. Text messages about business deals, emails to business partners, references to his Uncle James, and more particularly his father Joe, messages about payments monies. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And hard copies of the contents of that laptop are out there. Marco Polo's been doing the Lord's work on this one. You know, as a matter of fact, what was it I read today? That they put out an analysis that showed, and I mean, in different forms of crimes, there's probably like 500 or 600 individual crimes that somebody could be charged with just on the basis of the contents of that laptop. Okay. Now, here's what I'm getting at. Will any of this stuff legally touch Joe Biden? No. The contents of the laptop will not touch him legally. Politically, he's got a huge problem now. Because now, and I've mentioned this before, but it really comes into focus. He can't deny the reality of what is on that laptop. He can't deny any of it. Now, flip that coin around. Donald Trump, if he uses this wisely and uses it correctly, he can go after Joe, and there's not a damn thing Joe can do about it. Let's think back to October 2020, folks. Polling that was done after the election showed that if the American people would have been made fully aware of the contents of that laptop and the story, absent any censorship from Twitter or Facebook or Google, roughly 7% of the people who voted for Joe Biden would have never voted for him. They would have switched their vote to Trump. And odds are Trump wins that election. But Google, Twitter, and Facebook censored the New York Post's story related to the laptop. Okay? And Joe Biden won the presidency. Now, 4 years later, everybody knows that laptop is real. Everybody knows the contents are true and unaltered. Everybody knows that the contents were used to obtain a conviction of Hunter on a gun charge, which means logically everything else on that laptop is true, unaltered, and fair game in the court of public opinion. And Donald Trump and his people, to their credit, started hammering this point immediately. Now, Trump put out a tweet, or not a tweet, but a Truth Social, which frankly I thought was kind of weak. He was trolling Joe Biden. As a matter of fact, toward the end of it, he made the comment, "Don't worry, Joe, when I get elected president for the third time, I'll take care of your son, Hunter." All right, that was weak and it's trolly. I get why you're doing it. You're trying to be cutesy. But frankly, that's missing the political effect of what's happened today. Well, that Truth Social has been withdrawn, I don't know, deleted, I don't know, whatever. I couldn't find it. But look at what the Trump campaign came out with, and this right here is how you hammer Joe Biden. Watch this. Trump campaign statement on the Hunter Biden trial verdict and the Biden crime family. Quote, "This trial has been nothing more than a distraction from the real crimes of the Biden crime family, which has raked in tens of millions of dollars from China, from Russia, and Ukraine. Crooked Joe Biden's reign over the Biden family criminal empire is all coming to an end on November the 5th, and never again will a Biden sell government access for personal profit." That is from Caroline Leavitt, the national press secretary for the Trump campaign. Okay. This is how the Trump campaign needs to use that laptop going forward. Because think about it for a second. Okay? Think back to the second debate in October 2020. Okay? Biden deflected any questions about the laptop, and I think, who was it here? Was it Gypsy? Yeah, here it is. Several of those 50 who signed the letter saying the laptop was Russian disinformation have come out to say they will not retract their signature. That's true. That's true. But remember the debate. And this is what Biden referenced. 51 members of the intelligence community have said this has the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. This thing's a fraud. This thing's fake. I'm not even going to countenance this conspiracy theory that Trump's trying to put out there, yada, 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 on and on and on. Not anymore. I mean, if you're Joe Biden, what are you going to do? If Trump brings up anything about that laptop, if he brings up anything about the money that Hunter got from the Russian mayor's wife, if Trump brings up anything about Burisma, if Trump brings up anything about Ukraine, references anything at all from that laptop to demonstrate why it is that Joe Biden is compromised, has been compromised for the entirety of his presidency, what the hell's Joe Biden going to do? He can't sit there and say, oh, that's not true. No, hey, Joe, I'm getting this from the laptop. You know, the one they used to convict your son? Remember that laptop? That your Justice Department introduced as evidence into the trial against your son? Remember that laptop, Joe? What's he going to do? He can't do anything anymore. His defense has been stripped of him. Dear, feel better. We love you. And get better, darling. Prayers for you. TBA asked the question over on Rumble, can't they use that laptop in the other trials? Depending upon what crime he's charged with and whether or not the statute of limitations has ran out on it. That's the problem. But my point is this. Seriously, lay aside the question of Joe Biden being touched by any of this in the court of law between now and November. And that's not going to matter. In the court of public opinion, Joe Biden's got a big problem on his hands. It's huge. No, I'm not referencing the huge joke about this is legitimately huge. He's got an enormous problem because his defense against that laptop and its contents and what it reveals about him and what it reveals about the Biden family and all the dirty money and all the stuff going on over in Europe, it's gone. He cannot defend himself anymore. And if Trump does this right, and frankly, I think I'm going to put this back up here because the way the Trump campaign did this is brilliant. I'll read this again. Nothing more than a distraction from the real crimes of the Biden crime family, which has, listen to this, has raked in tens of millions of dollars from China, Russia, and Ukraine. People are going to say, well, whoa. What do you mean Joe Biden's raked in millions of dollars? I know it's hard to believe that anybody in America has never heard about this story, but there are some people that have. Bless their hearts, they are blissfully ignorant. And when you bring up the fact, yeah, Joe's been raking in millions of dollars from China, Russia, Ukraine, they're going to say, well, how do you know that? Well, look at the laptop. And again, what's Joe Biden going to do? Oh, that laptop, that's not true. No. I never did any of that. That's a bunch of phony baloney. That's malarkey. Joe. Remember? They used this laptop to convict your son. If he hammers this correctly, and I'm not saying make this one of your central oratorical weapons, okay? There's a lot of reasons to go after Joe Biden. You could go after him on his handling of the economy. You could go after him on his policies that have led to higher inflation. You could go after him for the southern border and all the problems that's caused. You can go after him for all these reasons, okay? And legitimately, you should. But if Donald Trump wants to bring up Ukraine, Hunter, the money, the compromises, the dirt, the everything else, he can do it. There's nothing stopping him, which you could also make an argument, well, there's nothing stopping him anyway. No, but the effectiveness of it is now been massively enhanced because the federal government's verified the contents of the laptop. This is what I'm saying. He's got big problems politically. I mean, all these commentators out, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody here. I'm just giving you my take on it. all these commentators out there, to me, are kind of overlooking the obvious. If you're Joe Biden, and when it comes to this laptop, where the hell are you going to go to defend yourself from it? He gets an interview with anybody that's got a journalistic spine, which I know for most of the people in the journalism community is not really there. But if he ever gets a hold of a journalist who commits what Rush Limbaugh used to call a random act of journalism, he's got problems. Because if he tries to deny it, he's going to look like an idiot. He's going to look like a fool. And if the journalist has any ounce of credibility, brains, and bravery, they will absolutely skewer him. They will eat Joe Biden alive just on the basis of the contents of the laptop and how Hunter's business connections tie back to him, tie back to his brother James, tie back to the money, tie back to the LLCs, tie back to everything else, and there's not a damn thing he can do about it. He is screwed. TBA says Biden already looks like an idiot and a fool. I agree with you. The Juneteenth celebration proved that. Oh, Lord Almighty. But yeah, I mean, this is something, the doors are blown wide open here. And if Trump takes advantage of it, his campaign does this right. And again, I think this press statement is proof of where they're going. Then yeah, he's got big time problems. Some more thoughts on this particular vein. This is from Alex Pfeiffer, who is the communications director for MAGA War Room Incorporated. The evidence that led to a guilty verdict came from the same laptop that's driving Hunter's tax fraud case on the money he made from foreign business deals. This decision is only the first step of the unraveling of the Biden crime family, and all paths lead back to one man, Joe, 10% for the big guy, Biden. You see where Trump and his campaign's going with this? Do not be surprised. And who was it who said this? Yeah, it's TBA over on Rumble. You can bet that Trump will start mentioning the laptop in his rallies, and he very well should. Absolutely, he should. Yeah, and this is Joe. His whole defense against this laptop is gone. 51 members of the intelligence community. Hell, he could go out and get 500 members of the intelligence community. He could get 5,000 members of the intelligence community. It doesn't matter now. He is sunk. His defense against the contents of that laptop are sunk. Can you imagine him trying to, on a debate stage with Trump, trying to fend that off? Because Trump's going to look at him and go, I don't see what you're complaining about. The same laptop that you used to convict your kid. I think Trump would be a little bit nicer about it than that, but you get my point. All right. Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. And 9 times out of 10, Barris can be exceedingly diplomatic, but every so often he can skewer you pretty good. Frankly, I don't know how the country is going to bring itself to vote for a guy who has a convicted felon for a son. That's just wrong. Trying to do a Trump impersonation here. What Team Trump should say over and over and over from now to the election. Hey, if they're going to throw convicted felon in Trump's face, okay, 2 can play at that game. Oh man, how can we vote for this guy who's got a son for as a convicted felon? Just throw it right back. And that's another point to think about. Because you know what the Democrats are going to do. They've already saddled that horse and they're riding him for all he's worth, man. They're whipping that hindquarter like he's secretary at the Belmont Stakes. Convicted felon, convicted felon, convicted felon. They're just beating that drum, whipping that horse, and just trying to get him to go as fast as it can. Convicted felon. Okay. Well, you know, you're the dad of a convicted felon, so how can we put you in the presidency? Mic drop. And yeah, Trump ought to do it. He ought to, and he's just gangster enough he would. Just gangster enough to do it. Okay. I have ranted and raved about this topic long enough. Yeah, Joe is evil. He really is. He really is. Yeah, Trump is gangsta, TBA. By the way, the guy to the left of Joe at the Juneteenth celebration who fist bumps Joey. Hey, wait, is that the guy in the red dress? I shouldn't say it was a dress. There was some guy there with like a salt and pepper goatee. He's an African American gentleman, and he looked like he was wearing this kind of like shimmery, what do you call it? A dashiki, I guess. Uh, Looked like honestly, God, I thought it was a dress. And I'm not trying to be insulting to the guy, but I mean, was that George Floyd's brother? Oh, to the left of Joe. Okay, I'm thinking the other direction. Never mind. Sorry about that. All right. I have ranted and raved long enough on this. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts about it. I'm telling y'all, there's stuff. Yeah, it looked like a glittered moo-moo. That's a good way to describe it. Great way to describe it. Oh, that was Billy Porter? Really? I did not realize that. Okay. Did not realize that. Huh. Absolutely amazing. Well, TBA, I appreciate you going back and watching the parts of the show you missed. Because, no, at the risk of being immodest, I think this is a good one tonight for a lot of different reasons. Now, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of reasons to be frustrated by what happened today, constitutionally. And again, I dislike Hunter Biden for a number of different reasons, but he is still an American citizen who should be accorded all the rights thereof. There's a lot of reasons to be upset constitutionally. There's a lot of reasons to be upset legally. But politically, I don't think this thing's over with yet. Not by a long shot. Guy in a dress sums up the Democrat. Ladies and gentlemen, this right here is why I've got the smartest audience on the internet. Or maybe better to say the biggest collection of smart asses. But no, I mean, this is very smart and very funny, might I add, Robert. Thank you very much. All right, it's about 8:47 Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday night. My name is Brian Trippett, your favorite ranter-in-chief. I am known as the Front Porch Conservative. We are on Rumble, Twitter, and that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. Bless your hearts. I've seen all the tweets and getters and gabs and stuff that's going out all over the place. This is fantastic. Thank you guys so much. I so appreciate everything you guys do. Spread the word about this little channel to get it growing. It's always appreciated. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't done it yet, hit the thumbs up. Am I buttering you up, WWG1? Yes, I am buttering you up every time I can because I want you guys to come back and, more importantly, bring some friends with you and get them to subscribe to the channel on Rumble and YouTube. And yes, if you haven't done it yet, give me a thumbs up on both sides. Give me a sub on both sides. It helps the algorithm and makes the guy behind the microphone feel pretty good about himself. Anyway. All right. Nancy Pelosi. Got to get into this. Am I still booted off of YouTube? No, YouTube apparently loves me now. They have not banned me. They just pulled down my stream from Saturday due to a copyright violation, is their side of the story. But I'm streaming over there right now. Believe it or not, I am streaming over there. So, oh, thank you, TBA. I appreciate that. It says you could not chase me off, especially after tonight's rant. I appreciate that. I genuinely do. Yeah, Pelosi. We got to talk about Pelosi. Okay. We talked about this briefly the other day, and it was at the tail end of last night's live stream. Well, there was some other parts of this that I need to get to. Now, for those of you who may not have seen this, the House Oversight Committee put out a snippet of a video yesterday, probably middle of the afternoon. And when this thing dropped, it just went off like a bomb all over Washington. Okay, proverbially speaking. And the video involves Nancy Pelosi when she was still Speaker of the House on January the 6th. She's in her car. Well, let me rephrase it. On or around January 6th, okay? It's either the day of or shortly thereafter. And she's talking with one of her aides, okay? Now, this runs about 41 seconds. We played it last night, and I'm going to play this again. As always, give me a sound check on this. Let me know if we're good. But I want you guys to watch this because old Nancy has some reaction to this, and you guys have got to hear it. All right? So in 3, 2...
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient
No,
resources.
there's not a question of how they have it. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
Okay. Again, did you catch what she said? I take responsibility for not preparing for more. Okay. For 4+ years, Donald Trump has been absolutely vilified for the fact that you didn't call up the National Guard, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. TBA brightly points out the National Guard wasn't there to begin with because Nancy told Trump she didn't want the National Guard. And Muriel Bowser didn't want National Guard. They were offered upwards of 10,000 National Guard troops could have been brought out of Virginia. We know this because Kash Patel, who's a deputy at the Department of Defense, said Trump had authorized it, but it was their call to bring them up. He made the offer to them. They didn't want it. Well, as I said, this clip went all over social media yesterday. And needless to say, it made its way to our friends over at MSNBC, who invited Nancy Pelosi on to talk about it. And I've got this clip. It runs about almost 2.5 minutes. I'm going to play it, probably stop it where I think I need to. But you guys need to hear Nancy's defense of this. So she's being interviewed by Nicole Wallace at MSNBC on her show. Folks, do me a favor and check this out.
Why do you think this is stirred up and a brouhaha on the right and in some corners of the media today?
Well, because the fact is that the President of the United States, the former president, and his toadies do not want to face the facts. They're trying to do revisionist history on January 6th. But
now, Nancy, pray what revisionist history are you referring to?
we cannot let us be dragged into their, again, false impression of what happened that day. They know what happened that day.
Yes, we do. You were offered National Guard troops and you declined. But let us continue to hear your side of it.
They know how serious it is and was and continues to have an impact on our country. And yet they want to call the people who were in there hostages. Last night I received the Lincoln Award. I was so proud of receiving that. And I said in my remarks, Lincoln built the dome on the Capitol. He insisted that it be built during the Civil War so that it could show the resilience of America. And to see these people coming through the Capitol with their foul deeds and foul actions.
Which foul deeds and foul actions were those, Nancy? Were those the ones where they were calmly walking through? Where most people, I say most, where most people were just walking through and taking pictures, where the Capitol security guards were pointing them in one direction or another? Are those the foul deeds that you're referring to?
Waving Confederate flags and Nazi flags under Lincoln's dome.
Whoa, guys. I know I'm getting older, but do me a favor here, and I'm serious about this. Does anybody remember any Nazi flags under the Capitol dome on January the 6th? I mean, like I say, I'm getting older. I don't remember every detail, but I'm pretty sure I don't remember anybody waving a Nazi flag under the dome on January the 6th. Now, maybe a Confederate flag. And this is mostly peaceful guided tour. There you go, Robert. There you go. Nazi flags, Nancy? You want to try that again, darling? Anyway, let us continue.
Was so shameful. And yet this former president who incited this insurrection would not send the National Guard for hours.
You were offered the National Guard, Nancy. You were offered them days in advance, and you turned them down.
People were harmed. People were killed, but died.
There were no Capitol Guard police who died on that day. Thank you very much.
One way or another. And what did he do but try to deny that any of it happened?
No one is denying that anything happened, Nancy. We're just denying your interpretation of it.
This is a terrible thing, but let us not take away the attention of what we need to do to go forward. We have to unify our country. We have to bring people together in a way that honors the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, as well as the aspirations of our children. I just came back from D-Day in Normandy to see our veterans there it was the 80th anniversary of it. Some of the youngest of them were 97, some over 100. They fought for our freedom, and yet you see how it is being denigrated by the former president and his Republican toadies.
So there you go. Nancy has spoken. No Nazi flags at the Capitol on January 6th, but there seems to be quite a bit of them at the pro-Palestinian riots. Great question. TBA says, I did see some stars and bars, but not many. The insurrection was all the federal agents that were storming the Capitol building in MAGA clothing. Ding, 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 ding. I will be so happy when this woman leaves the political stage. I really am. There you go. Well, I don't know what kind of toads they've got up there in Ohio. I'm just saying. And here's another great only on MSNBC, where they've got basically no viewership. Oh, I'm sorry. They're a little bit better off than CNN. So there you go. Oh, goodness. Just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Anywho, it's about 9 o'clock. You guys have a life, and so do I. So we're going to go ahead and wind it down. I want to thank you guys, as always, for being here for Chatting on the Porch. You guys are really cool. I mean, I say this all the time, and you really are. You're the best audience on social media. And keep spreading the word. Keep sharing it with people. We're going to grow this thing. It's going to get bigger and better all the time. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. And you guys are just amazing. I really do appreciate it. Anyhow, we will be back tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern, for another session of Chatting on the Porch. And don't worry, we are going to have stuff to talk about. There's some other things I'd love to get into, and I haven't done it yet. And ribbit to all of you too. Anyway, you guys have a great night. Come on back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern for another session of Chatting. And in the meanwhile, Remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall. It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow night.